Alright, buckle up, because we're diving into Anne Frank's world, where diary entries are the drama, and the vibes are half 1940s Amsterdam, half surviving in the secret annex like it's the world's most intense escape room. So, Anne kicks things off with the tea. It's her 13th birthday, and she gets this diary, which she instantly treats like her new BFF. Imagine it's like texting your group chat, except it's 1942, and the group chat is just you and your thoughts. She names it Kitty, which is pretty cute, considering this diary's about to hear everything. Anne's life at the start? Pretty chill, all things considered. School, she's vibing with her friends, crushing on boys, and living that semi-normal Jewish life in Amsterdam. But, plot twist, Nazis are being the absolute worst. They're cracking down on Jewish people harder than an overpowered boss fight in a game you weren't ready for. Jews can't go to regular cinemas, can't ride bikes, can't even hang out freely. It's a big yikes. Then, Anne drops this bombshell, her fam's got a plan to go into hiding. Why? Because Margot, her older sis, just got a report to the Nazis notice, which is like the ultimate do not pass go card of doom. Her dad, Otto, is like, nope, not happening. Cue the Frank family packing their essentials, books, clothes, that diary, and yeeting themselves to a hidden apartment above her dad's old office. And describes the annex like it's some kind of low-key treehouse for survival nerds, cramped, secret, and basically the perfect spot if you're hiding from literal villains IRL. Now, Anne's gotta adjust to this new life, which, let's be real, sounds more like an IRL Big Brother house, minus the cameras, but with way more tension. Sharing the space are the Van Pels, whom Anne renames the Van Dons Peter, a 16-year-old who's awkward as heck, his mom, who's like a constant walking side-eye, and his dad, who seems chill but likes to argue with everyone. Later, a dentist named Fritz Pfeffer joins the squad, making the space even tighter. Anne's first impressions? Spicy. She's got no filter when it comes to roasting Peter's shyness or calling out Mrs. Van Don's extra behavior. Living in the annex is no 5-star stay. They're sneaking around during the day, trying not to make a peep because the workers below don't know they're up there. No footsteps, no toilet flushing, no dropping the soap, literally. Anne's over here journaling like crazy because, let's face it, what else can you do? She's spilling the tea about her arguments with her mom, who doesn't quite get her. It's giving that classic ugh, parents energy, but with way higher stakes. Anne's also throwing some low-key shade at Margot, the ultimate golden child. Margot's all calm, sweet, and book-smart, while Anne's more like, let me live, okay? She's got a sassy streak and isn't afraid to speak her mind, even if it gets her into trouble with literally everyone. Anne's also a bit of a prankster, always poking fun at Peter, who she thinks is just a big ol' boring softie. Meanwhile, Mrs. Van Don's antics, bragging about her looks, flirting with Otto, having side-eyeing her like, girl, read the room. But here's the thing, Anne's not just spilling drama, she's also hitting us with her big brain thoughts. She's out here questioning the universe, her place in it, and why people suck so much. For a girl stuck in hiding, she's weirdly hopeful. Like, imagine journaling about crushes and deep philosophical truths while dodging Nazis. That's Anne for you. Now, let's talk about food. Or, more accurately, the lack of it. Meals in the annex are basically like a survival game where you're rationing potatoes and hoping for bread. Anne's not about that bland life, though, she's constantly dreaming of the good stuff, like cakes and cream puffs. It's relatable content for anyone who's ever stared at an empty fridge, wishing for pizza. The annex isn't just about tiptoeing around, it's also a pressure cooker for personalities. Otto's the dad everyone loves, keeping the peace like a true MVP. Anne's mom tries, but her bond with Anne is shakier than a Jenga tower. Margot stays low-key, avoiding the drama. Peter's busy being moody and mysterious. And Anne? She's the life of the party, the voice of the squad, the one who's gonna call you out and make you laugh while doing it. One entry, and describes a day where she and Margot get super resourceful with laundry. It's kind of like a DIY TikTok tutorial, but for wartime survival. She's learning how to adult in ways most teens today couldn't imagine. But don't think it's all just chores and drama. Anne's got dreams, people. She wants to be a writer, to see her name in print. And honestly? Big respect. Her determination is the kind of main character energy we stan. By August 1942, things are starting to feel more intense. Outside, the Nazis are leveling up their terror campaign. Anne's hearing stories about people getting snatched up and sent away, and it's horrifying. But inside the annex, life keeps moving, even if it's slow. Anne's finding little joys, books, daydreams, writing, but also grappling with some big emotions. She's stuck in this weird limbo where she's growing up fast, but also not at all. It's like trying to level up in a game where the XP is rigged against you. Throughout it all, Anne's humor and spark never really fade. Sure, she's venting about how annoying everyone is, looking at you, Peter and Mrs. Van Don, but she's also keeping it real about her hopes, fears, and frustrations. She's a teenage girl navigating one of history's darkest moments with more grace and grit than most of us could muster. So, that's the vibe from June to August 1942, Anne's world has flipped upside down, she's locked in with a bunch of quirky characters, and she's still managing to drop wisdom bombs while living her truth. If life in the annex were a Netflix series, Anne would absolutely steal the show. Stay tuned, because her story's just getting started. Alright, here's the scoop on what's happening in Anne Frank's diary from September to November 1942. Things in the secret annex are heating up faster than a microwave burrito, but not in a fun way. The crew's been living the ultimate cabin fever lifestyle for a few months now, and tensions are at an all-time high. Anne? She's still rocking her role as the sassiest commentator in this hiding out reality show. So, by September, Anne's gotten used to the whole don't breathe too loud, or we're doomed vibe of life in the annex. But it's not exactly cozy family bonding 24/7. It's more like when your friend group tries to marathon an anime in one sitting, and by episode 8, everyone's snippy because someone keeps hogging the snacks. Only here, it's life and death level serious, and the snacks are rationed bread crusts. Anne's diary spills all the tea about the annex squad's quirks. Take Peter, for example. This dude's got as much personality as a great NPC in a tutorial level, and Anne's not impressed. She roasts him for being awkward and mopey, like he's the side character who didn't sign up for the main quest. Meanwhile, Anne's mom is giving serious parent who tries to act chill but isn't energy, and their mother-daughter dynamic is more toxic than the last lobby of Overwatch 2 you rage quit. Anne's convinced her mom doesn't understand her, and honestly, the drama is peak teen versus parent content. Otto Frank, her dad, is basically the annex MVP, staying calm and handling business like the pro everyone relies on. Anne's got a soft spot for him, calling him her favorite, which totally throws shade at her mom, but hey, she said it, not me. By October, Anne's spilling her thoughts on the other big players in the secret survival game. Mrs. Van Dawn? Oh boy, where do we start? Anne's got a front row seat to this lady's next level drama. Mrs. Van Dawn is basically the Regina George of the annex, obsessed with herself, constantly complaining, and doing the most to stir up chaos. She flirts with Otto, yikes, nags her husband, and generally acts like the annex's chaotic evil wildcard. Anne's commentary on her antics is pure gold. Think Mean Girls, but Anne's got the sharpest burn book. Anne's also dealing with a lot of deep feelings, and her diary is where she pours it all out. She's scared for her friends who didn't get the golden ticket to this hideout, wondering what's happening to them out there. It's clear she knows the stakes, even when she's joking about life inside. Sometimes, Anne's sadness hits hard, like main character hitting their lowest point in a movie hard. But then, boom, she bounces back with some witty observation about how weird the adults in her life are. She's balancing hope and despair like it's her own impossible difficulty setting. And let's not forget about Fritz Pfeffer, aka the dentist, who's now part of the annex squad. Imagine this guy as the annoying roommate nobody wanted. Anne? Not a fan. She's stuck sharing a room with him, and he's crapping her style. Fritz has these super rigid vibes, like the guy who insists on house rules for board games no one else cares about. He's constantly making Anne feel like she's the problem, but really, he's just salty about everything. Anne's writing about this guy like she's crafting the perfect roast tweet. It's savage, but you can't blame her. The annex daily routine isn't winning any Best Day Ever awards either. It's all about laying low, reading old books, and hoping the people working downstairs don't hear a thing. The crew's mastered the art of staying silent, which is kind of like playing Among Us and hoping no one notices you're there, except way more intense. Food is rationed, so meals are the definition of struggle bus energy. And fantasizes about normal food like it's a mythical treasure. She dreams of cream cakes and chocolate like they're the ultimate loot drop. Then there's the fear, constant, creeping, and inescapable. Any noise could mean discovery. At one point, Anne writes about hearing bombings and gunfire outside. Imagine trying to live your life while every day feels like a jump scare moment in a horror game. The tension's so thick you could cut it with a spoon. But Anne's not letting the fear break her spirit completely. Her humor and creativity keep shining through. She even writes about pranks and moments of laughter, proving that even in the darkest times, there's room for a little light. By November, Anne's frustrations with everyone in the annex hit new levels. She's like that gamer stuck in a terrible co-op with teammates who refuse to communicate. Peter's still a snooze fest, Mrs. Van Dawn's stirring drama, and Fritz? Yeah, he's still the annoying roomie from Hades. Anne's learning how to cope, though. She's writing more, turning to books, and daydreaming about life after all this madness. Her imagination is her escape, a mental VR headset transporting her to places where she's free. But Anne isn't just roasting her housemates or fantasizing about freedom. She's also doing some serious soul-searching. She's asking big questions about herself, humanity, and what it all means. It's wild how someone her age can go from making snarky comments about Mrs. Van Dawn's fur coat obsession to reflecting on deep existential truths. It's like watching a character in an RPG grow in real time, leveling up their wisdom stat while keeping their charisma at max. One thing's clear, Anne's diary isn't just a journal. It's her lifeline, her venting space, her way of staying sane. She's not just surviving, she's finding ways to live, even in the smallest moments. Her entries remind you that even when the world feels like it's falling apart, there's power in holding on to your voice, your humor, and your dreams. So, there you have it, Anne Frank's life from September to November 1942, delivered with all the drama, humor, and heart you'd expect from a girl who's equal parts philosopher and queen of sass. Life in the annex may be a nightmare, but Anne's making sure her story hits like a bestseller. She's not just writing history, she's owning it. Okay, so let's pick up with Anne Frank's diary of a young girl in late 1942 and cruise all the way into mid-1943. By this point, life in the secret annex is feeling less like an intense hide-and-seek session and more like a never-ending reality show, if the prize for winning was not getting caught by the Nazis. The vibes? Stressful. The drama? Constant. Anne's commentary? Absolutely chef's kiss. It's November 1942, and still spilling all the tea in her diary. The annex crew is adjusting to having Fritz Pfeffer around, but is so not vibing with him. Sharing a room with this dude? Straight up nightmare fuel. Imagine bunking with someone who acts like they own the place and insists on calling dibs on the desk all day. Anne's like, hello, I'm a writer in the making here, but Pfeffer's out here pulling main villain energy by hogging her creative space. It's giving group project partner who does nothing but takes credit. Anne's also realizing that the annex's tiny, cramped setup is like being stuck in a low-budget version of The Circle. Everyone's watching everyone, there's zero privacy, and every little thing turns into drama. The food situation isn't helping either. Rations are running low, and the meals are looking more depressing than a soggy bowl of ramen. And dreams about food with the kind of passion most people reserve for their celebrity crushes. Her greatest wish? A giant hot meal without anyone whining in the background. Now, let's talk about the grown-ups because, oh boy, they're bringing the heat with their unfiltered chaos. Anne's parents are doing their best to keep things peaceful, but the Van Dons? Total wild cards. Anne's diary turns into a roast session every time she writes about them. Petronella Van Don, aka the Annex's queen of drama, is always flexing about how much better life was before the Annex. She talks up her past like she's trying to convince everyone she was living her best life pre-apocalypse. Meanwhile, Herman Van Don keeps stirring the pot with his loud opinions, and Anne's watching all this go down like she's the camera operator for a reality show confessional. But don't think Anne's letting herself off easy in her diary. She's starting to reflect on her behavior, too, and she's noticing how her personality clashes with literally everyone else. Anne's got big main character energy, and she's self-aware enough to know it. She calls herself out for being too loud, too bossy, or too emotional at times. But honestly, it's hard not to root for her when she's dealing with so much and still finding ways to stay true to herself. By early 1943, the tension is cranked up to 11. Outside the annex, the war is raging harder than a final boss battle. The Nazis are making life even harder for Jews, and Anne's hearing reports of friends and neighbors disappearing. It's the kind of news that makes her feel like the annex is both a prison and a sanctuary. She's scared, angry, and heartbroken all at once, but instead of crumbling, Anne pours everything into her writing. Her diary becomes her safe zone, where she can vent, dream, and think. The daily grind in the annex keeps testing everyone's patience. Anne writes about arguments breaking out over the tiniest things, like who gets to use the bathroom first or how to slice the bread fairly. Honestly, it sounds like a cross between a survival game and a sitcom where everyone's losing their cool. Even Otto, the chillest person in the group, gets dragged into the drama sometimes. But Anne? She's low-key thriving as the annex's unofficial reporter, documenting every argument with sharp wit. Peter Van Don, the annex's resident wallflower, starts showing up more in Anne's diary. At first, Anne thinks he's kind of a loser, awkward, shy, and not very interesting. But over time, she realizes he's got layers, like an onion, or a parfait, if we're going full Shrek references. She's not sure if she likes him, but she doesn't hate him either. It's complicated, and Anne's trying to figure out how to deal with her feelings without turning it into an epic rom-com subplot. Anne's also getting real about her family dynamics. She's still clashing with her mom, Edith, who Anne feels doesn't get her at all. It's like they're speaking two different languages, and every conversation ends with Anne feeling misunderstood. Her dad, Otto, remains her emotional anchor, but even he can't always fix the tension. Meanwhile, Margot's out here being the ultimate older sibling, quiet, polite, and so perfect it makes Anne feel like she's living in Margot's shadow. Anne's like, can I just be myself without everyone comparing me to Margot for 5 seconds? By spring 1943, Anne's personal growth is really shining through. She's still a teenager, so there's plenty of drama, but she's also dropping wisdom bombs left and right. She's thinking deeply about the war, human nature, and why people are the way they are. Her diary entries hit you right in the feels because they're so honest and relatable. Anne's not just surviving, she's reflecting, growing, and dreaming of a future where she can live freely. One of the standout moments from this time is Anne's realization that she's not just a kid anymore. She's becoming her own person, with her own ideas and beliefs. She starts to see herself as someone with a purpose beyond just hiding in the annex. Writing is her way of holding on to hope, and she dreams about becoming a journalist or author someday. It's the kind of ambition that makes you want to fist bump her through time. But the annex life isn't all introspection and self-discovery. And still has her hilarious, petty moments that make her diary so entertaining. She writes about Fritz Pfeffer being the worst roommate ever, again, the Van Dons' never-ending squabbles, and her own dramatic outbursts. She's unfiltered, and that's what makes her so real. Anne's not trying to be perfect, she's just trying to survive, grow, and stay sane in a world that's gone completely off the rails. As May 1943 rolls around, Anne's holding on to hope like it's the rarest collectible in a game. She's dreaming about what life will be like after the war, going back to school, hanging out with friends, maybe even falling in love. It's bittersweet because Anne knows the odds are stacked against her, but she refuses to let the darkness win. Her diary is proof that even in the toughest times, you can still find moments of light, humor, and humanity. So, there you have it, Anne Frank's life from late 1942 to mid-1943, told with all the sass, heart, and unbreakable spirit she poured into her diary. The annex might be a pressure cooker of personalities and drama, but Anne's voice cuts through it all like a beacon of resilience. She's not just surviving, she's living, dreaming, and writing her story, one diary entry at a time. Alright, buckle up, because from June to November 1943 in Anne Frank's diary, the secret annex becomes a pressure cooker of emotions, petty squabbles, and Anne's growing inner world. Life's still as claustrophobic as ever, with the war raging outside like the world's worst video game boss fight. Meanwhile, inside, the annex crew is basically starring in their own low-budget sitcom/drama. Let's kick it off with June 1943. Anne? She's thriving, or at least trying to. Her snark is sharper than Levi Ackerman's sword skills, and she's using her diary as a way to vent about, well, everything. The food situation is still grim, it's all potatoes and beans, like they're stuck in some dystopian food challenge from a knockoff survival show. And daydreams about the good old days of candy and real butter like they're treasures from a past life. The adult drama continues to be top-tier cringe content. The Van Dons are still at it, bickering over anything and everything like they're competing for the title of Annex's most dysfunctional couple. Petronella Van Don keeps flexing about her pre-war life like she's Loki, an influencer stuck in the apocalypse. Herman Van Don doesn't back down either, escalating every minor issue to DEFCON 1. Meanwhile, Fritz Pfeffer, the guy Anne has to share a room with, is still giving serious roommate from the underworld vibes. He's strict, stubborn, and keeps trying to boss Anne around, but she's not having it. She roasts him in her diary like she's writing Yelp reviews for bad roommates. Anne's also reflecting a lot more on herself and her growth. She's starting to notice how her personality clashes with almost everyone in the annex. She writes about her fiery temper and how people keep calling her loud or obnoxious, which, let's be real, hits hard for anyone who's ever been the dramatic friend in the group. But Anne doesn't back down, she owns her flaws and leans into her growing self-awareness. She's figuring out how to channel her emotions into writing, and you can see her leveling up her introspection stat. The annex isn't just a place for bickering and existential musings, though, it's also a non-stop symphony of fear and tension. The Frank family and their crew are constantly worried about being discovered. Every knock, every shout from the street below feels like it could be game over. And talks about air raids and bombings shaking the city, making it impossible to sleep. Imagine trying to rest while your brain is stuck on what if this is the end. It's terrifying, but Anne's resilience is next level. Even when she's scared, she finds a way to crack a joke or make an observation that feels oddly comforting. By the time summer rolls into fall, Anne starts to dig deeper into her relationships with the annex squad. She's softening a bit toward her mom, Edith, even though they still don't exactly see eye to eye. Anne's like, okay, maybe she's not a total villain, but their dynamic is still rocky. Otto Frank remains Anne's rock, he's calm, wise, and basically the human equivalent of the "it's fine, we got this" meme. Margot Frank? She's still the chill older sister who keeps her head down and avoids drama like it's her job. And, however, struggles with living in Margot's shadow. People are always comparing them, and Anne feels like she's losing in the quiet, polite daughter department. But instead of wallowing, Anne channels her frustration into her diary. It's her way of taking control of her narrative, and honestly, it's inspiring. Now, let's talk about Peter Van Don, because this dude's getting more screen time in Anne's diary. At first, Anne thought he was kind of a dud, awkward, shy, and about as interesting as watching paint dry. But by now, she's starting to see there's more to him. Peter's just trying to survive like everyone else, and Anne realizes he's got layers. He's not the leading man in her story yet, but he's definitely not just a background character anymore. Anne's observations about him show her growing maturity, she's learning to see people for who they really are. As the months go on, Anne gets real about the emotional toll of life in the annex. She talks about feeling trapped, restless, and isolated, like her world is shrinking. And honestly, who wouldn't feel like that? Imagine being stuck in a small space with the same people, day in and day out, with no escape and no internet. She dreams of going outside, feeling the sun on her face, and doing normal teenage stuff like riding bikes or hanging out with friends. But instead, she's stuck navigating the annex's endless drama and monotony. Despite all this, Anne's determination to stay hopeful is nothing short of legendary. She writes about her dreams for the future, imagining a life where she can be free, travel, and become a writer. Her ambition is pure fire, and she's not letting the grim reality around her snuff it out. Even when she's feeling down, Anne clings to her belief that people are still good at heart, a belief that feels both heartbreaking and incredibly brave, given everything she's going through. By the end of 1943, the annex feels more tense than ever. Food is scarcer, nerves are frayed, and everyone's struggling to hold it together. Anne's diary becomes her lifeline, a place where she can vent, dream, and process her emotions. She writes about everything, from her frustrations with Pfeffer to her evolving feelings about the people around her. Her writing is raw, honest, and full of humor, even when things seem impossibly bleak. So there you have it, June to November 1943 in the secret annex, told through Anne's sharp wit and unbreakable spirit. She's living through one of the darkest times in history, but her voice shines like a beacon, reminding us all that even in the toughest circumstances, there's room for hope, humor, and growth. Anne's story is a testament to resilience, and her diary captures the highs, lows, and everything in between with a voice that's impossible to forget. Alright, so from November 1943 to January 1944, Anne Frank is still living that secret annex life, dodging drama, rationing food like it's a survival game, and writing her heart out. If the annex was a reality show, it would be called The Real World, Holocaust Edition, because the vibes are tense, the alliances are shaky, and everyone's got beef. First off, let's talk about Anne's mood. By this point, she's having feelings. Big ones. On one hand, she's like, ugh, these people are driving me insane, but on the other hand, she's diving into her inner world like it's an emotional deep-sea adventure. She's thinking a lot about who she is and who she wants to be, which is total main character energy. Her diary is still her safe space, where she can vent about everything from the drama in the annex to her dreams of a better future. Speaking of drama, it's everywhere. Anne's relationship with Edith is still a roller coaster, and not the fun kind. Edith wants Anne to be quieter, sweeter, and basically more like Margot, the ultimate golden child. But Anne's like, sorry, I can't turn down the volume on my personality, and honestly, we respect the hustle. She writes about feeling like her mom just doesn't get her, and every argument leaves her emotionally drained. It's tough, but Anne doesn't back down. She's determined to stay true to herself, even if it means clashing with her mom. Now, let's zoom in on Anne and Peter Van Dawn. This is where things get spicy. Peter's been chill in the background for most of the Annex saga, but now he's stepping into the spotlight. Anne starts noticing him more, and it's not just, oh, hey, he's here. It's more like, wait a second, is Peter kind of cute? Anne's feelings are all over the place, like she's in the middle of a shoujo anime where every blush and glance feels like a life-changing event. She's trying to figure out if she actually likes Peter or if she's just bored out of her mind and clinging to the closest boy. Either way, it's giving middle school crush vibes, and it's totally relatable. Meanwhile, the adults are keeping the drama dialed up to 11. Petronella Van Dawn is still the reigning queen of complaints, and she's not afraid to let everyone know it. She's out here whining about everything from the food situation to the lack of luxury in the annex, like she forgot there's a literal war going on. Herman Van Dawn isn't much better, he's always arguing, and his love of food causes tension when rations run low. Anne's watching all this go down like, y'all, can we not? Fritz Pfeffer, Anne's unfortunate roommate, continues to be a thorn in her side. He's got this strict, know-it-all vibe that clashes with Anne's free-spirited energy. Sharing a room with this guy? Pure torture. Anne writes about him with a level of sass that deserves a standing ovation. She's constantly calling him out for hogging the desk, being a control freak, or just generally being annoying. Honestly, it's the kind of roast content that would go viral on TikTok if it existed back then. Despite all the chaos, Anne is growing up in some really profound ways. She's thinking a lot about the person she wants to become, and she's realizing she doesn't want to be like the adults around her, who are always fighting and complaining. She's got this strong sense of justice, and she's determined to be kind, empathetic, and independent. Her introspection is next level deep, and it's clear she's wise beyond her years. Anne's also reflecting on what it means to be Jewish during such a dark time. She writes about the horror of what's happening outside the annex, and it's heartbreaking. She feels guilty for being relatively safe while so many others are suffering, and that guilt fuels her desire to make something of her life. Anne's got this unshakable hope that the world can be better, and she's holding onto it like it's her secret weapon against the darkness. The annex routine is still the same old grind, long days, little food, and no privacy, but Anne's finding ways to cope. She reads, studies, and writes as much as she can, treating her diary like a bestie who always listens. She dreams about the future, imagining herself as a journalist or author, and it's clear that writing isn't just a hobby for her, it's her lifeline. It's how she processes the chaos around her and makes sense of her emotions. One of the standout moments from this time is Anne's realization that she's not just a kid anymore. She's growing up in the most stressful circumstances imaginable, and it's forcing her to mature quickly. She's more aware of her flaws and trying to work on them, which is super relatable. Who hasn't had those "wait, am I the problem" moments? As January 1944 rolls around, Anne's feeling a mix of hope and frustration. She's dreaming about what life will be like after the war, going to school, traveling, falling in love, but the reality of being stuck in the annex makes those dreams feel so far away. Still, Anne refuses to give up. She's holding on to her belief that better days are coming, even when everything around her feels hopeless. So there you have it, November 1943 to January 1944 in the secret annex, told through Anne's sharp, witty, and deeply introspective voice. It's a mix of middle school crushes, family drama, and profound reflections on life, all wrapped up in Anne's incredible resilience. She's not just surviving, she's growing, dreaming, and finding ways to keep hope alive, even in the darkest of times.